Hello, welcome to Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought about a number of changes in how people spend their time, whether it's following up on an urge to bake, not me, binging on a Netflix series, or learning to knit. People are changing how they relax. Another shift is the increase in reading, which is really great. A number of recent surveys determined that the rate of readership in Canada has been steadily rising since the initial lockdowns last year. And this applies to readers of all ages. Our first guest, LaSalle-based writer Pam Stradesky, knows that books help even society's youngest readers to find enjoyment and hope in times of uncertainty. As a mother, grandmother, and with years of working in childcare, she's had a lifetime of understanding children. She's used her knowledge to craft 4 children's books. Her latest book, Coronavirus Came to Town, depicts how everything changed for children during the pandemic. Pam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what prompted you to write for children about coronavirus?
Well, I was very curious when we got into the first lockdown, how the children were coping and what they were doing and how it was affecting them. So I spoke to the children I babysat and my grandchildren and asked them what they were doing and what was different and how it was affecting them. And my ideas came from there. And I just decided to write something for them to look back on after the pandemic's over and remember this time in their life and, something I could leave behind and something they would enjoy.
What sort of things were they telling you?
That they were enjoying helping mommy and baking in the kitchen or cooking in the kitchen. They were enjoying picnics in the backyard. They were enjoying more going to the trails and nature walks, riding their bikes. And they were just enjoying a lot of family time, having family dinners that they didn't usually have in a rushed atmosphere, with mommy and daddy being home more. And it wasn't really as badly affecting them as I thought it would.
Now, what age group were they?
Well, the ones that I talked to were from 2 to 12.
Yeah.
So I didn't interview anyone above that age.
And sort of later on, we'll sort of chat a little bit about then and now. But tell me about your virus. He's a green character with legs, but he's not scary looking.
Right. I didn't want to frighten the children, but I wanted to talk about the virus still. So it had to be about the virus. When I first drew my coronavirus, I had the virus be on his face. It was actually on the nose. And my niece decided to put it on the tail, which I think is a lot better.
Yes. It's like a mine.
Yeah. And he's hidden throughout the book, which the children really enjoy trying to find him on the pages. Like it's something they can do after they read the story. They can go back and see where they can find him and how many times they can find him throughout the book. So.
Now, the illustrations are adorable. Who did them?
My niece. I have a very talented niece.
You got that right.
Her name's Kelly, and she lives in London, Ontario. So that made it challenging to do a book together, during a pandemic when she's in London. But she's worked on all my books, so she gets me, and she knows what I want from what I write and tell her, and I can count on her to come through every time.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it, in an illustrator, that they can almost see inside your head.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it can be a bit of a disaster.
Right.
I knew a writer, and like your book, most of it sort of depended on the illustrations. And the person who was doing the illustrations said, he would do the whole book and then show her everything. And she said, everything he did was so not what was in her head.
Right.
And so, it can be a bit disconcerting, right? When all your characters are alive for you, and then you have a book where it doesn't work.
Yeah, and being family, I'm glad it doesn't work out that way, because I would want to not tell her and hurt her feelings because she's my niece. But no, she's always come through 100%.
So now, have you been reading the book to children?
Yes, I've been reading the book to lots of children. In fact, I was recently asked to read the book to a school class virtually. So that was kind of nice.
You enjoyed actually being, face to face,
With
even
a
virtually.
classroom, yes. It was fun. And the children enjoyed looking for the coronavirus throughout the book at the end of the book.
Now, have you had a response from outside of Ontario, outside of Windsor?
I have. I had to mail some books to England and a lot to the USA. And it was only because I was first featured in the Windsor Star, which was a shock to me. And then from Windsor Star, Windsor Life contacted me, and I was in Windsor Life magazine. And then that teacher reached out to me, and now you have reached out to me. So it's been quite widely accepted. So that's makes me very proud.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you're after you read it to the children, what sort of reaction do they get? I mean, do you have a conversation with them?
Usually, yes. They get all excited when they see Messenger Kids is mentioned in the book, and they love to look for the coronavirus throughout the book and try and find them. So it's been really, really great for me to have this kind of acceptance.
Now, so what part of the pandemic were we in when you wrote it?
Really early.
Really early.
Yes, because I was in childcare prior to, and then when I had to be home, I was really bored. Really bored. So, I did some baking and cooking like everyone was doing. And then I thought, I should write another children's book. I should write about the coronavirus. And so then I started asking questions and coming up with my ideas, got a hold of my niece. Are you on board? And
yeah,
went from there.
Now, have you had a chance to talk to kids now and see if a year into this, how things have changed?
Well, yes, actually, I am homeschooling, virtually learning with my granddaughters, 3 of them. They're all age 7 now because one just had her birthday. And they're at my house every day since September. So wow. I know how it's affecting them. They're pretty much still the same for them.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And they said, I'm going to really miss them when they go back to real school. Yeah. I said, yeah, probably I will.
Yeah. It seemed as though for a lot of children, they were more resilient at the beginning. And you are hearing reports now of all of the mental health issues that are hitting children. And perhaps for a lot of children, maybe they don't have the same supports or they find it more difficult online. And so now they're dissembling because that resilience they had and the fun at the beginning is not so much fun anymore.
I've been hearing that from some, like the children that I used to take care of, they're back in real school. So they're enjoying that part, but they're missing their sports and that kind of thing. So, and I see on Facebook a lot of that too. A lot of parents complaining that their children are really missing all the socialization.
Compared to writing kind of, very much fictional stuff, but this is sort of more real. Did you find it different, or did you have to pay attention to different things that you didn't have to consider when you wrote pure fiction?
They were all based on some truth because they're all children's books, so they're my experiences with children.
Yeah.
But this one I did at the back of the book, I added a lot of resources. So if parents wanted to look up resources for their children, it's all at the back of the book. And my other books, I didn't do that because the first one was called My Special Blanket. So it's just about all the things that children can do with their blanket, make tent forts and stuff like that. And then Hush Little Baby was a book for wee ones, like a bedtime story. And then I did Granny in the Basement, which was about a grandma that lived with her daughter while she was battling cancer. And she lived downstairs, but the grandchildren didn't see that part of it. They just saw their grandma. But that one was really special to me.
Where did that come from?
Actually, she liked my books and she was a big fan of them. And she teasingly said, well, you should write one, Granny in the Basement. And I thought, I will. So, that one's really nice too.
So tell me about your background. Did you come to writing books recently, or is that something you started, as a schoolgirl?
I did poems as a schoolgirl, and I always saw myself publishing a book of poems. But then I realized not a lot of people are interested in books of poems. So my other interest was children. So I decided I'd write children's books. And then when I'm retired, I plan to do a lot more of it, do it more as a full-time thing.
How long ago did you write your first one?
I want to say about 10 years ago.
So 4 and 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think I could write a lot more if I put my mind to it. And yeah.
It's much different and it's much harder if you're working and if you've got a busy life.
Right.
And then you try to fit writing in. And then sometimes if you think you should be doing, things in the household or with your family, and then all you want to do is to be in front of that computer.
Yeah, be quiet and think of things and yeah.
So where do you get your inspiration?
From the children.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How are parents responding?
They all love it. I haven't had a bad review, so yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It is.
Because, parents make the decisions about whether or not they're going to buy the book, right?
Right.
And so you always want the parent to appreciate how valuable it will be to the child.
Right. Like when I had my first printing delivered to the house, I didn't know it was going to go in the Windsor Star. And when 48 hours, I had a list of people on back order. So I had to quickly ask for a second printing. Yeah. So it was a really great response.
So how many books do you think you've sold already?
400 probably. Yeah.
That is fabulous.
For being not in a store or anything, just being at my house. So
yeah, absolutely. So what's next for this? Are you going to sort of do some marketing? Because obviously the marketing has come to you.
It's come to me, yes. Once I am no longer taking care of children, once the pandemic's over, then I think I'll concentrate and then I'll do it more, look for a publisher. I was just doing this more for friends and family when I started out. I never expected to get this kind of exposure.
Oh, that's terrific. Are you having fun?
Love it, yes. It's what I've always wanted to do. So, yeah. Well, it was poems, but I've always wanted to write.
Yeah.
So
before we go, do you have an idea for the next book?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
You're not saying?
I'm not going to say because someone might run with my idea, but I've already started writing it. So.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah. So how can someone get your book?
They could go to grandmapam.com and all my books are there.
It's a great name.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for sharing it.
And thanks for having me.
Our next interview is with Leamington author and self-described transformational speaker, Chris Forman. Chris has also worked as a professional bartender for 25 years, and through his interactions with the public, their life stories have provided fodder for his storytelling and insight into the human condition. Chris recently released True Wealth, a book that outlines what he sees as the 12 jewels of true wealth. Knowing these pearls of wisdom may perhaps be more important now during a worldwide pandemic than at any other time in recent history. Chris joins us now here in the studio to help explain true wealth. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, nice to be here. Thank you.
So, what is true wealth? How do you...
Well, how would I describe it?
Yeah.
I would say it is the inner riches that we all have, that we always have access to. So what I do is I list them off as jewels. So they're all things that we either have felt or we have access to, and most importantly, that we can consciously choose to activate in our lives.
List them for me.
Purpose, curiosity, simplicity, patience, balance, gratitude, joy, health, courage, hope, awareness, and love.
Why are these important?
Because of how they make you feel. Because they deeply enrich your life. And that's really what the message is that it's about feeling wealthy, feeling rich without ever having to spend any money.
How does a person unleash these things inside themselves?
Well, I guess it would depend. Sometimes it would just be contemplation. It could be deciding to consciously choose to implement one of the jewels in your life that day. So if you wanted to be at a store and be playful, you could do that. If you wanted to decide to be curious that day, you could just drive around and look around and notice things that you wouldn't normally. One thing I did while I was waiting to come in here today was I noticed the turkey vultures were soaring around, and I thought, well, I just kind of was fascinated by them because I thought it looks like they're just having a good time, just cruising around. And I kind of wish I could do that.
Of course, they were probably looking for dinner.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, I don't really like what they eat because I know it's usually dead stuff.
Have you ranked them in importance?
Yes. Yes, I have. That's a great question, actually. I did purposely put them in a certain order because I felt that they build upon each other. So obviously love is number one. And love, really, if you look at all the 11 other jewels that are there, love encompasses all of them. But I built them on purpose where, starting with purpose, you go into curiosity and simplicity. And I feel like I put them in a certain order because I feel like love, awareness, hope, and courage and health are the most important. And I think that hope, some people may not believe this, but hope is actually more important than your health. Because if you don't have hope, then you really don't care about if you're healthy or not anyway. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are many people who would identify with what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You call yourself a transformational speaker. What does that mean?
It means that I intend to hopefully transform people, or they can transform themselves by listening to the messages that I have within the book. And if they're able to integrate the jewels and consciously be aware of them, it really ultimately will transform you.
So now, I mentioned that you were a bartender for 25 years. How important was that? Or has that been to you?
Very important. Well, bartending has always allowed me to interact with a wide variety of people. It allows me to be playful. I get to celebrate holidays with people and birthdays and anniversaries. And I mean, let's be honest, as a bartender, I get away with a lot more than I would say if I worked at a bank or a school
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Now, you also talk about how profound it was that, and you're very candid about having been in jail for DUI. Mm-hmm. Why was that important?
Well, I think mainly it was because I wanted people to hear the message that I learned from that time in jail. I was in there for 6 weeks, and it wasn't a really
long week.
It was a long time. Even in the book, I say, if you want time to slow down, go to jail for a while. It'll slow right down. The big takeaway, though, and the reason why I put it in the book is because it taught me so many things. It taught me to be patient. It taught me to don't judge people by how they look, because I got to know some of the guys in the jail, and just because they look rough and tough doesn't mean that's really who they are inside. And I would say the biggest takeaway for me is just all the things you miss when you're in jail. Like just the little things that we take for granted all of a sudden are taken away. And I mean, we can relate to it now more with the pandemic because we've all had things taken away from us now. So that was the main thrust of that chapter was I wanted people to know that, try to be grateful for what you have and try to appreciate the simple things in life, because there's millions of people in this world that are behind bars and they can't enjoy that.
And people even in life who are not incarcerated, who don't have the little things, right?
Exactly.
Now,
Yes.
in a couple of chapters, and I think I recall Simplicity and maybe Hope and Love, where you mention your wife, Nicole.
Right.
Tell us about her.
My wife, well, my wife's amazing. She's been the inspiration for me for the last 20 years that I've been with her. And I weave her story throughout the book because there's so many things that I've learned from her. Her health challenges with cancer, her willingness to be courageous and move across the country to be with me, her resilience and her ability to just bounce back from so many health challenges, including one very recently where I almost lost her, actually.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, back in just after New Year's, she had a big flare up in her cancer, and it was close. But she came back and she's doing great now. So
That's
it's
good.
amazing. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful for having her. And I've said that in the book many times that it's actually been a blessing for me because I never take my wife for granted. I treasure her every day, and I don't know how long I'm going to have her. So I focus my energy on her, and I love her, and I cherish her, and I enjoy her, and I'll do it right after I leave here. I'm going to go see her.
Now, you talk about two watersheds, one with you and her, where you almost made decisions that you didn't make.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, we were both having health challenges, my wife with cancer and me. I had a lot of things going on with neuropathy. I don't know if that is, but it's nerve stuff.
Bad stuff.
It was pretty bad. So I was in a lot of pain. So there was a stretch of time probably back, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, where we were both really suffering, and we had tried so many different things, and we got to a place of such despair that, that scene in Thelma and Louise, which is a bit of an older movie, but if you've ever seen it,
Yes.
you remember the end
Forever.
of the movie, right?
You can never not see it.
Right. And so that was something that crossed our minds, was that because we have been to the Grand Canyon, so we know how big it is. So if you were to launch off that thing into the great unknown, you know what you're doing.
Yes.
So, but fortunately, we both found our way out of that darkness. And in the book, I mentioned it happened for me in one way, and my wife, she had her own realization.
Yeah.
So I guess the moral of the story is that, both my wife and I, we truly understand what it's like to feel depressed and to feel anxiety and to feel depression.
And then hope.
And then hope. Yeah. Because we realized that there was so many things that we still had in our life that were great. And we weren't focusing on that. We were just thinking about that dark cloud that was over us and the pain that we were in, instead of really channeling our energy and focusing on what we still had.
And the other, I mentioned two, and the other was your father.
And that was a story where, unfortunately, I wasn't living in this area. My dad was living in Kingsville, and he got himself into some legal problems and some financial problems where he got so sad and depressed that he felt that his only option was to end his life. And so I put that in there, and it was a dramatic thing because of how he did it. And I didn't want to sugarcoat it. I wanted people to know what he did, but I also wanted people to know that I felt like if I would have had an opportunity to talk to him, I think I hopefully could have reached him and helped him to see that there was so many reasons for him to still live, and that there was a way out of the darkness.
Because he shot himself.
He did.
Yes.
He did. Yeah.
It's extraordinary because it's clear that you bring a lot of you into all of this, a lot of your experience. And I think that rather, you can read a lot in a book. But when you write a book and you have so much of you in it, it really is impactful. Now, there is on page 94 in the book, you have a quote by a philosopher called Rumi.
Right.
And I wonder if you could just read that.
Sure.
It's really quite wonderful.
I put these in here just because they really hit home and they're so powerful. So here are some of the things that Rumi has said. He's a 13th century Persian poet, and he says, "The quieter you are, the more you are able to hear. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." This one's actually my favorite now. "Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder." Which I thought was such a cool concept that he put that together like that. He says, if you are irritated by every rub, in other words, every little thing that bugs you, how will your mirror be polished?
It's really wonderful. We could talk so much. I just want you to briefly tell me, this book is really great for adults and teenagers, right?
I think it's a book that everyone can benefit from, right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much. And there's another thing in the book. It says, in the darkest skies, you see the brightest stars. I don't think I'll ever forget that. Thank you so much. We really appreciated this.
Oh, thank you.
Now, where can you get the book?
Amazon.
Amazon. Okay. So don't forget, on Amazon. That's all, again, for this episode of Scribes and Songsters. Many thanks to our guests, Pam Stradesky and Chris Forman, our producers, Liz Pettypiece-Phillips, Gary Glass and Brian Sweet. Grateful thanks to Tony Toldo and the Toldo Foundation, and of course to Neil and Tina Queering for their support. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon right back here on Scribes and Songsters. I'm Veronique Mandel. Bye for now.